there she is, sitting outside. As you might be able to tell, it's snowing just a little bit. But I had the frame in the house for a while, got it up on wheels inside, but it just got to be too cumbersome to keep in the house for right now. So it's out there until the warmer weather starts, and then I can start buttoning on some of the pieces. Well, the kitchen has become a temporary workplace, especially over the last 2 weeks. I've been on vacation over the holidays, so I've had some time to work on some things, and of course I don't want to do it out in the cold. So I built this engine stand out of just some spare wood I had laying around. It was $80 to get a new engine stand, so I didn't want to do that. So I went ahead and fabricated one myself. Spent a lot of what I've been doing the last couple weeks, really just painting, polishing, cleaning. Alright, so you can see sort of what we have here. We've got the cylinders painted, cleaned up. I know the tappets aren't originally black, but I did want to paint the tappets black because I just think it'll look sharper. Got some new chrome bolts for those. Painted the bottom parts of the jugs black because I just think it was a cooler look. I had it together when it was all just plain metal, and it just didn't look the way that I wanted it to. So put some gasket sealer up in here to prevent some oil leaks. The rocker boxes are good. I actually took some time to drill out, I don't know if you can see, I drilled out some of the oil leads. That will just make it easier to get the lines in later on. So that was a suggestion by internet legend Pacific Mike, so shout out to him. The camshaft cover is not put in yet, not installed yet. I mean, it's on, but no screws. All the gears are timed, ready to go. Everything's good. Cam's in. I just didn't want to seal it up yet because I just want to check and make sure everything is exactly the way I want it before I put gasket sealer on it and put it all together. Get this cat hair off of here. The circuit breaker, distributor. Of course, I gotta check and make sure that that's still working okay. What else? I got the new neoprene rubber. I don't know. New seals. They're not cork anymore in here. Hydraulic lifters. Cleaned out. Good to go. They're empty right now, so I'll have to get those adjusted. I went ahead and rebuilt the oil pump. New gaskets, new insides, new valve and check spring and all that. I did split the case. I did not take the pinion gear off, but there was an oil leak at the bottom of the case, which of course it's all cleaned up now, so you can't really see where it was, but yeah, there was an obvious leak from underneath the case. So I split the cases, put gasket sealer in there, made my own new gasket, or gasket maker, whatever. Got new nuts and green zinc to put it all back together. And that's most of the stuff here. And then of course the other side is just sort of sitting here. I did order new rocker shaft nuts because these were the original red ones. I painted them and I thought they'd be okay to maybe use, but they were so brittle they ended up just shattering when I laid one down. So anyway, ordered these. They've got the little crush washers on there, so that should be good. I'll seal up the other side with some gasket sealer too, so I'll make sure that's good and tight. We're gonna need new spark plugs, of course. The rocker boxes themselves have been cleaned, polished, put together okay. I got to check the tolerances on the actual rockers in there. That's why I was waiting on this kit to come in so I can go ahead and get those down to specs. Got a new oil line kit. Didn't really need one, but I thought it would just dress up the front a little bit. So yeah, that's sort of your little walk around here. And again, I've just sort of been working in the kitchen, just because it's warm and nice in here. So that's what I've been doing. What else? Of course, I have parts all over the place. Different this and that. Wiring harness. You can see that there. Got a couple boxes of goodies here. Had to get the new ignition switch. It's the heavy duty one. The old switch I took off. I took the tumbler out. I cut my own key. I was pretty proud of myself for being able to do that. But ultimately, even with the key working in the tumbler didn't hold the switch when it was in the locked position. So even in the locked position, it was still turning. And of course, that's no good. But it'll work out now because I have a new ignition switch key, and since I cut the key for the original ignition switch, it still fits the fork lock. So I'll have a double key set up. Got some wheel bearings from All Balls, so those are installed. Muffler supports, wiring harness, all that kinds of good stuff. Got the old wheel hub. Those were replaced. Spacers. You can see a little damage here. So I replaced those as well. Did have to end up getting the clutch hub nut tool. So that's a special order tool. A little box of knickknacks and stuff down here. I got some fender reflectors, so I figured why not, you know. Wider wheels, stuff. That's mostly just tools. A couple oil seals, JB weld, stuff like that. This here is mostly just a box of gaskets and stuff. So, of course, you got the primary gaskets. What's this? Probably cam cover gaskets. Had to wait also to get these today. Base gaskets. So those are going to go on. It's been sort of a dry fit mock-up here for a while, but we'll go ahead and get it all together and with the gaskets in place and make sure everything's torqued down to spec. This thing should go on the bike here in the next couple of weeks. I'm just trying to get it off the table for right now. Here's a box of some random metals. License plate holder. A couple brackets for the seat. Luggage rack. Horn. Seat springs. Those are all in there. I have to spend some time and get them cleaned again. I got the initial gunk and grime off of them, but I'm going to try and get most of that rust out and get all that taken care of. Got the bag holders here. They're all cleaned up and ready to go. So again, this has been my little home workshop. I do video production on the side here and there for weddings and things like that, so I use this as my home office. So I've got my computer and stuff in here, which works out really well because I can watch YouTube videos of tutorials that I might not completely understand what's going on with some things, so that's been helpful. Keenan Tatro out of San Diego has been super helpful. His videos, if you haven't watched him, I highly recommend him. Pacific Mike, of course, another one. But this is sort of the inventory that I've got here in my office. So essentially what I've been doing is, like I said, just cleaning some things along the way. My goal is, once the weather turns, is to go ahead and sort of button things back together slowly but surely. So random stuff has been cleaned and put back together. These are the front brake shoes and pads, license plate holders. Everything has been anything that wasn't chromed for the most part. I just tried to paint black just to give it sort of a fresh look. I know a lot of traditionalists would oppose that idea, but you know, the stuff that was chromed out, of course, I'm going to try to keep chrome. For example, here's the headlight cover. So that's been cleaned up. The headlight rim, air filter cover. This is part of the, whoa, see you later, part of the front brake assembly. I'll find that washer later. Yeah, anyhow. What do we have here? Shifter. We gotta get new rubbers for the shifter. Again, I mean, some of this was steel, metal, right? But it wasn't chromed out already, so I've degreased everything, cleaned it up as best I can, put some fresh paint on it, make it look as sharp as possible. Starter solenoid. Again, I'll have to bench test that, make sure that's good to go. This here is the what Harley calls the jiffy stand, or kickstand, whatever you want to call it, but re-grease that, put it all together. This is part that goes along with it. Got a new spring for it. I'll put that on when it's actually on the frame. The front nacelle, again, it's been cleaned, but I'd like to spend a little bit more time polishing it up if I can. So I'll go ahead and do that. I did go ahead and rebuild the carb. This is a Bendix carb. So it's my understanding that the 68s originally came with the Tillotson carb, which didn't work too well, according to all the sites I've seen. They switched to this Bendix carb. Later on, which I think began to be issued with the bikes themselves, I think in 71. But we're going to give this bad boy a try and see if we can get her up and running. If not, I mean, we can upgrade to a Super E if we have to. The old Petcock is promising. It passes the blow test. But what I didn't like about it is, or don't like about it, is that the screen, the protective element screen here, was all rusted out and ripped out. So I could theoretically build another one and just sort of DIY it. But then I'd hate to put all that work into this just to end up seeing a leak in it. You know, it's a little bit loose. So I am going to order a new Petcock. There's some additional parts that I'll eventually have to clean again, repaint, replace, whatever. I do believe this is the original to the bike Delco Remy voltage regulator. So we'll have to test that as well, make sure that's working. Here's the ignition coil. It's been cleaned up, but again, I have to test it, see how well it's gonna work. Might end up replacing that. We'll see how that goes, but the bracket pieces are good to go. I did go ahead and take apart the starter motor again. I put in a new plate, put in new brushes, new wires, and painted it, so hopefully that'll work pretty well. I can't imagine there was anything wrong with it to begin with, but it was dirty, so I cleaned it up as best I could and got some working parts in there, rerouted some of the wires, so it just is a little cleaner on the inside, but I expect there won't be any problems with that. I'm not going to get out the generator, but the generator has been taken apart, rebuilt as well. The fields were fine in it, but I did reroute some of the wires, put a couple new connections on the terminals just to clean them up a little bit. The generator, as I understand it, was rebuilt sometime in the mid-80s anyway, and the bike has been sitting since the late 80s, so I can't imagine there was anything necessarily wrong with it. But again, since I took it all apart, I'm cleaning it up as best I can and just making sure that parts work like they're supposed to. So when I get a battery, I will go ahead and bench test that as well. I did end up buying my own truing stand for the tires. Worked out well. Got the new spokes on. I wouldn't say this stand is the best, but it definitely did a passable job. There was a little bit of wobble in the rim, even after adjustments. But I attribute that more to just not being able to tighten the stand as much as I possibly could. Because once I got the tires mounted, everything seemed to work out somehow, miraculously. So the tires seem pretty trued. Balanced, probably not yet, but we'll get into that in a little bit. Okay, I did go ahead and repaint the rear drum brake plate. So that's looking a little bit better than it was originally. This rear master cylinder was original to the bike. I don't know that it's ever been rebuilt. A rebuild kit is like $38. A brand new one is $61. So I'm thinking about just springing the extra $20 or whatever and going ahead and getting a new rear master cylinder, so I don't have to worry about rebuilding anything. Maybe hard to see the transmission, but it's been completely torn down, rebuilt, new seals, new gaskets. It needed new pawl springs, so I put the pawl springs in. Got everything sort of running the way that I want it to, so we're looking good there. Again, we'll have to sort of test it on the bike and see how it all works out, but as an isolated piece right now, it seems to be working the way that it needs to. It's a 4-speed ratchet top, so again, original to the 68 FLHs, so no Kickstarter because this was the Electraglide model, so the Kickstarter option was not on this bike. It's got the plug on it, so purely electric start. Again, you're going to have some enthusiasts who are going to be mad at what I did here, but, my bike, my problems. So, the primary was really stained with oil and grease and just gross all over. So, I did go ahead and steel brush everything out of that. So, it's clean. It does, of course, have some scratch marks in it now because of the steel brush, but I was never really going for this, like, chrome polished mirror look. It's an old bike. It's got history. It's been in my family for a while. I wanted to maintain that history. So it wasn't really my intent to make this a show bike. This is going to be a bike that I use regularly. So there is a little spot here where the kickstand dug up into the primary cover a little bit. I'm debating on whether or not I'm going to fill that in with JB Weld. We'll see. I might just go ahead and put a rubber piece on the kickstand, cover it up. We'll see. I don't know, a little wear and tear in the bottom corner, getting into some corners too deep, but I don't think that's going to present too much of an issue. Again, if it does, I'll just put a little JB Weld on there, grind it smooth, whatever. I'm not going to be using this thing for much more than leisure riding, so no big concerns. The housing for the jack shaft right there. Needle bearings are still good in that, so we're okay there. Here's the inside of the primary, back of the primary, whatever you want to call it. Bearings still look good, so I've got little assembly loops in there. They're ready to go. The starter unit is still all there. I'm gonna mess with the solenoid, and you know, of course, I'll have to do that when it's all on the bike and just make sure everything's working the right way. Underneath where the starter housing sits, there was a thin crack here. This metal got worn pretty thin because the chain slides under here. So a couple things. Put some JB weld in there and smooth that out with a little bit of a Dremel. Same thing underneath. Hit it from both sides to really fill in that crack as best I could. And then it was advisable to get this chain guard for this piece here. So I got it snapped into place right now, just sort of making sure that it's going to form to that as best it can. And that will be an extra piece that will be added on to this bike. I also added a little bit of JB weld down here. It was just a little rough around the edges, so smoothed it out and got that looking the best I could. Pretty dark in here, but you'll notice I got some random tins and things like that ready to go, or I guess accessories, not tins, but some little chrome add-ons, seat pans, chrome accessories for the fenders, bumpers, stuff like that. Rear bumper and mount, and got that cleaned up and ready to go, so we're good there as well. Got a box of lights here ready to go. I'll throw up a quick picture of the lights that were originally on the bike. I'm going to have to get rid of one set of indicator lights and one set of the bullet lights, because one set of the indicator lights, I tried to drill out a screw that was really rusted into the housing, but I didn't have a drill press, so that sort of went askew. And then, of course, I don't know, I ended up dropping something with a socket or something. It landed on one of the bullet light lenses, so casualty there. Again, you've seen this before, but did the painting myself. Again, you know, this is a DIY project. I wanted to make it as much money as possible, so painted everything myself. Those are the gas tanks, of course, original Fat Bobs. They didn't have the emblems on to begin with, so I went ahead and just threw them together like that. Got some new caps on there. You can barely see those. And then, of course, back here, there's the other pile of fenders. So, all painted the same. They're going to look good, I think, once they're on the bike. I like the colors. I ended up with peacock blue, eggshell white and black with some silver accents. So you'll see what it looks like when it's all together, but I think it's going to look pretty sharp. Hopefully give it a little bit of a unique look. Oh, a couple little things over here. Battery box. This thing was all eaten away by some acid, really discolored, so I just cleaned it up the best I could, of course. Degreased it, hit it with a couple layers of paint. I don't expect it's going to last too awful long, but, you know, it's still free. And then right here we have the brake assembly, the rear brake assembly. I turned the pad around so that the worn side is on the inside, so now I can toe the end a little bit better. But again, this was all metal, none of this was chromed, so just cleaned, painted. I did use some of the original hardware, but I added some new washers and things like that, so that's good to go. That'll be ready when we're ready. Here's one of the most interesting projects I've done on the bike. So I thought that I was going to have to learn how to weld. I don't have any welding equipment. Let me show you the issue that I was dealing with here. So these are the running boards, of course. Get you in the focus. Running boards came with some studs mounted in there to hold it all together, and really ended up being pretty flat. But what had happened was this particular one, a couple of the studs were were broken out of the flat part. I'll show you what I mean here. This rubber's not on. Neither is the other one, but these two were completely broken out, right? So I don't know how well you can see in the light, but essentially I took some carriage bolts and I grinded down the top to make them flat here and here. Got some thin but big washers just to make sure we have a good surface area that we're working with. Put those down in there with some JB weld and ran some new hardware back here. Now originally these should be studs, right? These should look like this. Up in the front or on the outside, it doesn't matter too much because these I don't think really impact anything. So I went ahead and put screws in here. And then I made the mistake of these studs here are the same studs that go in the back here. And, or here, I don't know how well you can see any of this. But, anyway, I had a longer screw here and a couple of nuts, or a bolt and a couple of nuts on here. And then I realized that once I put this stuff on, it couldn't swivel in, right? So I did a test run on this side. There was some JB weld in here just to hold it together a little bit better. I crammed a little washer in there because there was just a little wobble in there that I wanted to take out, but that washer I think is in there pretty secure, so nothing's going to happen to that. But JB welded this and then realized I wanted to see how good the JB weld would grind out so that I could fit those swivels in there. So you'll see it better on this other one here. Okay, so on this other side, same issue, right? Went ahead and put some washers in, ground down the carriage bolts, got it as flat as I could. I'm going to get some type of adhesive to put down here and put the pads back on. I put some JB weld in here just to hold these a little. I mean, it was worn out, but the studs were still in there, but the metal was cracked around it. So I put some JB weld in there, fixed it up, cleaned it up a little bit. But the issue that I was running into was on this underside. Okay, you'll see here this rivet right here. They are in place purposefully to stop these pivots, right? So there's a stopping point for those pivots, so the floorboards can go up and down when you hit them in the corners. Well, I didn't account for that on the other side, so when I put it back together, I didn't have those original rivets in there, so I put a long bolt in there, and then I had 2 nuts on there. Well, I realized that you're not going to have that clearance that you need to get the swivels to work if you have a big nut up in there. So I took a grinding wheel and ground it all out, but hopefully it fused that metal together, essentially made a rivet out of it, and we're in good shape. Some of this stuff under here, obviously you can tell these are not original. The original trim screws were a pain in the butt to get out, so I just got some machine screws and threw them in there. I'm a little disappointed in myself because there was actually a chrome trim piece that fits here that follows the footboard all the way around the floorboard. Totally forgot to install those, but it's too much of a pain in the butt right now to try and get them put back on, so I'm just going to leave them off and they'll be fine, I'm sure. Like I said, bike's all here. I got new tires on it. Mounted the tires myself. Not a job for the weak hearts, that's for sure. But managed to do that. Got it all taken care of. So clutch hubs are all in. Spokes are all in. You know, looking good. Got a temporary pin in there. Like I said, the brake pads aren't in right now, but it's all pieced together except for the brake components. I just wanted to make sure that it was all going to roll okay and everything was going to be okay with it, but so far so good. Tires, I got a set of Shinkos. I was thinking about getting Dunlops. Now, of course, you know, some of your hardcore riders are going to say, oh man, you should have got the Dunlops or whatever, because, you know, that's a more high performance tire. But I figure for how I'm going to be riding this thing for the first year anyway, gosh, I mean, both tires were what, $160? Can't beat that. I'll throw them away after a year. Who cares? Okay, I really don't know how much you're going to be able to see back here. I'm going to give it my best shot, but this is the little storage shed. So these are some of the things that I still have to work on. I'm going to have to get new headers. These headers are garbage. There's holes in them. They're too far gone to JB weld. And I'm going to have to go ahead and get the flex pipe with them as well. Got to get this tin cleaned up. I think some of the clamps are janky, and got to get those JB welded. Just figure out some type of solution for on the cheap. Some of your bag guards are down here. I still haven't cleaned up those. Chain guard, I got to get that all cleaned up and ready to go. Front engine guards here. Again, they're going to need cleaned up as well. The highway pegs on these face toward the bike on the inside of the engine guards. I guess that's how they used to do it back in the day, but I'll be flipping those things around and getting them on the outside. I just think they look better there. It's a more comfortable ride. The bags themselves, originally they were white on the original bike. These ones were painted black, and I think the black works, but because I have, peacock blue and eggshell on the other tins, I'm going to do something to sort of match that here. Not 100% sure what yet. I was thinking about maybe doing the oak leaf, the Harley oak leaf emblem on the bags, hand painted. I don't know. We'll see. Lots to think about there. Parts of the clutch here, clutch plates, clutch basket, primary chain adjuster. Can you see any of that? It's probably way too dark. I'll see if I can lighten this up in post. Part of the air filter assembly. Master cylinder for the front brake. It's going to need replaced. That's gross looking. I'm going to get out of the way here so you can see some of this other stuff I got. Alright, here's what's left. Compensator sprocket, pieces of the compensator sprocket, parts of the clutch, the seat post, the headlight, 2 more turn signals or indicators. I gotta get cleaned up eventually. I can only bring so much into the house at once, Speaking of which, probably gonna go ahead and bring this speedometer into the house and see if I can get that cleaned up. And then random wires and nonsense and pieces of everything here. There's the ignition housing cover. And like I said, I got a wiring harness. All this stuff is going to go back together. Got some passing lights down here. I don't know if you can see any of that stuff. The tops of the bags here. And down here is the oil cooler. I think that's most everything. So I feel pretty good about where we're at, and I just wanted to give everyone an update as to where we were. So I got another day and a half before my vacation ends. I'll do what I can to get the engine itself put back together, and we'll get her all pieced together eventually. But there's my update for now. Sorry I've been keeping everyone on hold. Once the weather gets warmer, I'll do better about all this stuff. So that's it. Thanks for watching. There will be more videos in the future when I've got time. But time is going to be in a short supply the next couple months. So just keep looking for a new video. Of course, as the weather warms up, you'll probably see some other things. If you want to follow me on Instagram, go ahead and leave a comment below with your email, and I'll go ahead and send out my Instagram address to you so you can follow my progress there. I post a lot more on Instagram as well. DIY shock compressor. Built that myself. Saved lots of money. Windshield's tucked away back there. Not 100% sure how I feel about putting that back on. We'll see. Be sure to like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. Okay, bye.